Hello everyone. Today we will dig into something very specific. It's the focus question. I think it's the single thing we talk the most about with our startups at the family. All day long, each time we have an office hour, each time we met them, each time we have an interaction, 90% of the case it will end up with a sentence like, you should be more focused. You should be more focused. You should focus on this, or you should not focus on that. And it became, like something we say so much, but at some point, some people are starting to be totally lost about what it means. And what I want to do today is to try to give you a very concrete case of what the focus is. So, one of the misconceptions that is very often due to the expression of focus is that people are likely to think that focusing on something is doing only one thing. And there is this misconception when you tell someone that he should be focused, that there is a single task that he can do, and that task should be his only and solo focus, and nothing else counts. But the problem with that view is that even if in part it's kind of true, people are facing reality and they are facing the fact that so many times in their entrepreneurship story, they need to do multiple things in the same time. And they start to feel that pressure that even if they want to stay focused, there is so many things around them that distract them. So let's be clear. As an entrepreneur, you will have a lot of things to do. There will be thousands of different tasks. There will be thousands of different things that you will be obliged to do. Some of them are fun, some of them are not. Some of them are useful. Sometimes some of them are a pure waste of your time. But dealing with it is part of the job, and dealing with it is part of being focused. So there is a definition I like much more about being focused, is that it can come down to the question of intensity. It can come down to the fact that being focused is about being very, very intense, and about everything you do, whatever you are doing, you will always do it with the highest level of intensity. And when we talk about intensity, we talk about something very specific, about how much energy can you put in everything you do. And it can come down to every basic task that as an entrepreneur you have to do. One example is the sales focus. For example, the best company at the family are always be closing. I don't know if you know that movie with the salesperson that say the very basic lesson about sales is A, B, C, always be closing. Like that sentence in that movie became like, the sales very common pistache joke. But the truth is that when you are a startup, every single sales you are doing count. And for example, being focused means being intense. Being intense means that every single person you will meet, you will try to sell. And we have great example of that at the family. For example, Nikolai in Menu Next Door, each time he goes somewhere, even when we do our grocery, he closes people to become cook on his platform or to become new customers. And it's always amazing to watch because it's kind of funny. Most of entrepreneurs fail because they don't want to look like funny. But it's better to look like funny and out of your league and so many times embarrass people about what you are doing and try to sell whatever it costs than not being successful and embarrassing no one. So one of the obstacles of putting that kind of amount of intensity in your project is that often you are worried that people will judge you, or people will be annoyed, or people will be, oh, that guy is talking again about his startup. Like, I cannot stand. But if you reach that point, at least you will be in the game. Because at least you will be so much into the game, you will be doing so much of that kind of focus that you know if you are right or wrong. So, our very concrete definition of focus is that as an entrepreneur, you should separate your task in two kinds of tasks. We love separation like that. We are very exclusive. So, two kinds of tasks. Tasks that provide growth, tasks that doesn't provide growth, tasks that have a direct impact on your growth, tasks that doesn't have any direct impact on your growth. So it's kind of easy. Let's take an example. Accounting. Growth or not growth? Not growth. There is a guy that said growth. No. That was a simple one. So that one is very, very unuseful for your growth. So as an entrepreneur, you should not focus on. That doesn't mean that you don't need to do your accounting. Like it's a legal obligation. You have no other choice. You have to do that kind of stupid things because that's the law. So I'm not telling you that not focusing on something is not about not doing it. Not focusing on something is trying to find hacks to make it as a back process in your company, even if you will be a little bit late about that, or maybe finding a great solution that will solve that issue for you, etc., etc. So being focused is about the fact that you need to focus on everything that provides growth. And at early stage, there is only two things that can provide growth in your startup: talking to customers and having new product. And developing your product and talking to your customer should be a very intense cycle that both come along the way with each other. Another example we have been very impressed by at the family is Algolia. Algolia is one of our very, very early stage company, and something that really stuck me working with them, something I really learned from them, is that from day one, their only obsession was how I install my software on the computer of every entrepreneur at the family. How I get everyone that is inside the family, that I meet at dinner, that I meet during the event, that I meet at meetup, that will install my solution. And it's a kind of an easy solution, and one of the traps most entrepreneurs will get in is that when they want that someone installs something, like the best case scenario will be something like, I send you an email with a link, download it, and let's see if it happens. But Algolia team, that's what they are doing. What they are doing is that they open the computer and they install it for you. That's intensity. That is focus. It can seem really silly. It can seem like, oh my God, but what I will install myself on 1,000,000 computer? Of course not, because at some moment, you will reach a point where other people will be as fan as you of your company and do that for yourself. But you cannot underestimate the amount of energy you need at the beginning and the amount of intensity you need to put inside your startup to reach that kind of level. Be smart about outsourcing. There is thousands of opportunity of outsourcing out there. There is platform where a lot of people in cheap country can provide cheap work for you. You have Elance, Upwork, freelancer.com. We even have one French one, Upwork, but H-O-P, work. You have so many companies that can provide you a lot of labor and workforce in the cloud that can do everything that is a stupid process inside your company. For example, one of the things I always see people doing is the data crunching thing. You know, when you start a project, you have a lot of data crunch to do. Maybe you need to data crunch a base of leads. Maybe you need to data crunch a list of investors you want to contact. Or you want to data crunch, I don't know, a list of customers by category and organize the data. And I'm always amazed to see how many entrepreneurs do that kind of things by themselves. You know, and with two kind of strategies. Strategy one, you know, is the geek entrepreneurs. They use algorithm, and they will spend hours to find a way to build something a little bit automatic to gather the data. And most of the time, the data sets are so small that 10 people in India will be much more efficient than any algorithm. And the other strategy is that they will spend night long without sleeping, just doing that because they have the feeling that they will look real and tough doing that. And there is no case of doing that is not something else than being stupid. Like it's a very basic misconception about work. It's a very basic misconception about what is important. So there is so many things in a company that you can automate. There is so many things, so many tools, so many processes, so many steps that you can just program yourself. And one of the things that is very important to keep in mind is that programming your company is a task as an entrepreneur. The automation is something, it's a very important task. And it's something you need to do that it's manual automation by using outsourcing, or it's an automatic automation. But you have to think about what is not valuable inside your company. So why it's so important to be focused? Because being focused is a single way of learning how to do your startup. Let me explain that, and let me explain that by an experience here everybody had lived in his life. Who know how to ride a bike? I think almost everyone. Okay? Who remember of learning how to ride a bike? Because it's always so amusing to watch children learning to ride a bike. How it works? First step, they receive advice from parents or friends of the family. And the advice are always very, very theoretical. So to ride a bike, you need to find your equilibrium spot and put one leg in front of the others, and you will move, and you will feel it, and it will go well. And if you look at most children listening to this kind of advice, first, they are way too young most of the time to understand what all of that is about. You know, I remember one of my nephew asking, what is equilibrium? And you end up in a very endless conversation. So the equilibrium is the fact that you don't fall, but you're, okay, forget it. 4 years old, not possible to learn that kind of thing. So there's only one way to learn how to ride a bike. Is that at one point, the parents start to be annoyed. They put you in on a hill, and they just drop you, and you go, and with fast, your brain start to understand what's happened. Maybe you will fall 1 or 2 times, but after a certain point, you will understand how it works, and you will just flow. Being an entrepreneur is exactly the same thing. It can seem strange, but most of people learn how to succeed with a startup. They learn it by doing, not by thinking. And even when they are doing it, they are so bad at explaining how it works. And why? Because it uses their instinct much more than their rational. And how do you train your instinct? How do you come up with an instinct that works? There is only one way. You need to focus. Because being focused puts you in a situation where you have no other choice than being right or wrong. And to give you an example that speaks a little bit more for entrepreneurs than riding a bike, let's take the very common unfocusing of the beginning of every startup. Market segmentation. How many people start their company and on this very basic question, who are your first users? People reply, everyone. Of course, everyone will love what I'm doing, and everyone is waiting for me. So that thing comes down to the realization that you hope that the market segmentation will be forced to yourself. You hope that someone outside will say, I'm the user. I'm the one that wants to buy your product. And that comes down to the fact that if you don't decide yourself who are your first users, and if you don't define very precisely who are your users, you are taking the risk of just going around without any consideration for, without getting any real feedback from the market. Let's say you say, my product is focusing on teenagers. And let's say you are wrong. What will happen? What will happen is that focusing on teenager will put you in a situation where you will never sell to any teenager. Focusing on teenager will put you in a situation where the reality that that was not the right segment is not correct. And focusing on teenagers will put you in a situation where you have no other choice than trying harder or changing your market segment. And what will happen in that process is that it's exactly like falling from your bike. You will learn things that are unconscious about your product that are not things that you are aware of, but they are things that you will be forced to implement in your product for the next steps. And being focused and being intense force you to have a very concrete definition of everything you do. Because if you are unfocused, if you are just marketing worldwide, you will never know what is the KPI of your success. You will always have small victories because you will always find a random guy in every group of user that will be the kind of fooling himself and being kind of your user. And you will think that you are accumulating success when instead you are just stepping in the grave and not realizing because you did not choose to focus on any market segment. So one of the great value of being focused is that it helps you to decide if you are right much faster. And also, it helps you decide if you are wrong or not much faster. Another example that I love to talk about with our startup is the hiring question. The single kind of mistake that every startup do at the beginning is that they hire too fast and too big, and they hire too early. You know, when you do a startup, there is a lot of things that you are very excited to do as a first-time entrepreneur. Taking an office. Like every first-time entrepreneur will spend a huge amount of time of thinking about their office, where will be the office, where they will work, which kind of co-working space, blah, blah, blah. Printing business card. Like it's very easy task to be real. You go and you know, now it's cheap. When I was a young entrepreneur, printing business card was really expensive. So it was kind of like you reach a milestone printing a business card, but now no, everyone can print a business card. So people feel like, oh, I'm real. I'm a business person. Look, I have a business card. Like, and I hope one day you will reach a point where you will stop to all print business card and annoy everyone with your business card. Because after you end up like, we have a box upstairs with thousands of business cards and you don't even remember any single person in the box. But one of the other very joyful thing as a first-time entrepreneur is hiring. Because the hiring process is so grateful at the beginning. You have job interviews, so you meet people. You have the feeling of power, because you will decide if you will get the job or not. Now you are the real boss. You will have all the screening, weird question. Even if you read, I don't know, the Google interview process or Facebook interview process, you will come up with games or party or anything that fit your culture, and that will be so important to decide if someone needs to work for you or not. And all of that, you know, it's kind of very useful when you really need to hire, but most of the time startups hire too early because they hire for the worst reason ever, is because they need to solve their problem. You want a very concrete example? You don't have any client, so you will hire a chief marketing officer. Because of course you have no client because you don't have a chief marketing officer, not because your product sucks. And another example will be, oh, let's hire a CTO, a great CTO. Why do you need a great CTO? You have no engineers to manage? Because your product is not good. So you think that hiring a great CTO and not really paying him at the value that he deserves will bring you anything that will bring you a good candidate in the pipe. But of course, only bad candidates end up in that kind of pipe, because no one wants to work for an early startup that don't have any traction. So what is the right time to focus on hiring? It's when you are growing. Like, you can separate again your startup in two kind of phase: pre-product market fit, post-product market fit. Pre-product market fit focusing is about just two tasks: building your product and talking to your customers, nothing else. Post-product market fit, your only focus as a founder will be to hire the people to sustain that growth. But you should be careful, because you should never hire in advance. So many people give this so stupid advice that, by the way, I hear so many investors give in France and in Europe in general, is you should hire for the future. Yeah, of course. Let's hire for an hypothetical moment no one will know what it is. Like, you should hire for the present. You should hire for the people that will bring you value directly inside your startup. All of that is because people are looking for a kind of validation. You know, why people unfocus themselves? They unfocus themselves because it feels good to be unfocused, much more than being focused. You know, like going to conference, networking, all of that means that people are really doing something real. And you know, the problem is that most of the people in your entourage will think that all of that matters. You want an example? I'm always amazed how much congratulation our entrepreneurs get each time they are in the press. Each time someone receives an article, they get so many likes on Facebook, so many congrats, so many feedbacks, so many people write you emails because they remember you. Like, there is this joke we have at the family, that each time there is an article about the family, we have this list of dark listed people that contact us. You know, there are the people that every 6 months wake up and they are like, oh my God, that's real? Yeah, let's contact them, even if I don't like them. And it's annoying because you want, as an entrepreneur, being celebrated for the real things. You want to be celebrated for your clients, you want to be celebrated for your revenue, you want to celebrate for your product achievement, you want to be celebrated for all of that. But the problem is that all of that is internal. The outside world don't get at all what happened internally. And you know, sometimes it can create very weird situation where, for example, some of the most celebrated press companies inside our portfolio are the ones that are bankrupt. Like, for example, we had this company that had the competitors that was all over the place, and the competitors was doing something like a fifth of the numbers of our company. And when you talk to journalists and tell them, why you don't write article about our company? They are like, yeah, but your founder is so arrogant. And you're like, okay, fair enough. Like, that can be a criteria to be in the press, to be nice. And that's part of the game. But the problem is that you, as an entrepreneur, you need to reach that level of discipline where you don't care of what people think outside. You don't care of what your family think. You don't care of what your boyfriend or girlfriend think. And because if you don't reach that, you will always optimizing not around what is good for your startup, but always to seek the wrong kind of validation. You need to seek the right kind of validation. And one of the good ways to do that is that you need to create your own agenda of celebration. You know, one of the sad things in Europe with most of startups, they don't know how to celebrate well, and especially small celebrations. Because it's not the question of doing a big party for your big fundraise. It's a question of having a clear definition of the milestone you want to reach, and be sure that every of these milestones will be celebrated accordingly internally. And if you have this kind of agenda of celebration, and if you have this kind of internal roadmap, whatever will happen outside, you will not care. And also it works the other way around. Being in the press and being a press darling can be part of your job. Because sometimes doing things that are just for the vanity are very important. I'm not saying that PR are not important. I'm just saying that you need to keep everyone internally focused on the fact that being a press darling is not necessarily mean anything. Because sometimes what happens is that people, even internally, will believe much more what happened there than what is said in the press about what is happening than what is really happening. So you need to keep a crystal internal communication. And one of the things about focusing is that it comes down to one of the things that is much more important is to learn to say no. And I can tell you, because it takes me a huge amount of energy to say no. You know, I'm one of the worst person at that. I can give you that lesson because I feel so comfortable with that. I'm the kind of guy that say yes very easily with everything. So, like, it's really a motto in life, always say yes and you will see what happens. And a lot of time in my personal life, that brings me to very good steps. But the problem is that your company is not defined by what you are doing. Your company is defined by everything you refuse to do. And that is a sentence you should repeat yourself. You should write it down on your bathroom mirror and learn that saying no is one of the ways that you can bring value to your company. And you know, we had this story in our portfolio very recently, where one of our company get contacted by a star chef, and the guy wanted to meet them and do something with their product. And I was so excited. Like, I was like, oh my God, I will meet that guy. I will go to the meeting. Of course, I never go to the meeting of our startups, but when there is something fancy like that, of course I want to go. And the entrepreneur told me like, oh, I'm sorry, Oussama, I told them no. I was like, are you kidding? Why did you say no? He said, because we are not a luxury product. And I was like, okay, that's fair enough. Yeah, like you are right. I was like, I was stupid to be pissed off, and you're exactly right. That's what it means to be focused. Being focused means that sometimes opportunities can bring you nothing, and you know that they will bring you nothing, and you should be crystal clear about the fact that you will do nothing that will be in that configuration. And one of the counter-arguments that a lot of people have around that is that they will say, yeah, but so many times you don't know what will happen during a meeting, and that random opportunity can end up with something big. And I took that lesson from Angel List. I wrote an email to a friend not long time ago about being introduced to the founders of Angel List to talk about the family. And the guy replied to me, he said, I'm sorry to tell you that, Oussama, but Angel List doesn't take any external meeting. And I was like, why? And he said, because they are so focusing on building the product and building their business that they are fine about missing out a lot of opportunity. And that's the point. The point is that you need to decide which kind of opportunity you are comfortable missing. Because being focused is about the fact that there is so many good things that can happen to your startup that you will decide consciously that it will not happen because it's not part of your strategy. That's not to say that you don't need to take good opportunities, but you need to have this kind of filter that decide if that action is aligned with your long-term interest or not. And most of the time, most of vanity things are not aligned with it. Or one of the things that I do, for example, I have what I call an entertainment budget. I do things that I know I will waste my time, but it's part of my holidays. For example, I'm going to the Forbes 30 under 30 party because that will be a good party, but I know for sure that it will bring nothing in my life. The champagne seems good. So, do what matters today, and I think focusing is also about changing your temporal perception. So here I want to talk about something that is a huge misconception around our ecosystems, that, you know, entrepreneurs are people that are planning to the future. Entrepreneurs are people that are so good at planning their life and planning their task. That's wrong. That's not what entrepreneurship is about. Entrepreneurship is about being very good every day and being better every day. And if you want a very single advice you can apply to learn to be focused, is reduce your time space. Forget everything about strategy, for example. No startups should do anything strategic. You know, so many entrepreneurs on beginning of their story, they are like, oh, I want to meet you to talk about my strategy. So here's a definition of strategy. Strategy is a usage of capital over time. Why strategy exists? Because I hope one day you will reach a point where you will have so much money on your bank account that you cannot spend it in a day, so you will have to think how you spend it. There is a direct correlation between capital and strategy. Strategy is born to use capital over time. If you have no capital, if you have no money, if you have nothing, you have no strategy. You have only survival mode. And every startup should start being in this huge hardcore survival mode. So when strategy appears each time you need to put your time frame a little bit longer. For example, when the family was born, it was illegal, and when I say illegal, you can talk with our early employees, how much that was a rule, to talk about anything that will take more than one day. You know, the family was every day in survival mode, and every day we was doing things, and if anyone was telling us next week we should do that, we was yelling at him, and it was illegal. After 3 months, we started to have a bit of money, and we did our first fundraising, so we switched from the one-day time landscape to the 1 week. And everything that we are doing should happen in a week. If anything will take more than a week, he was not allowed to do it. And recently, we switched to 1 month, and problems started. So now at the family, people are allowed to do things in 1 month, and I regret the time of a week, to be honest. But you have no other choice because you have more people, you have more capital, you have more resource. So you need to slow down a little bit and learn to things. But you see, 1 month. 1 month is not 3 months, 6 months, or a year. Everyone that strategizes over a year is just losing his time and losing his focus. And one of the good things is that if you reduce your time frame, you will automatically focus on the right thing. Because you will see that most of the things that waste your time take time to prepare, time to plan, and time to organize. But most of the things that provide direct value are things that you can do very immediately. Let's take an example. Let's say you want to talk about, I love when startups tell us that, I want to talk about my marketing budget. My marketing strategy. And my funny question is always like, what is your marketing budget, by the way? 0, so that's your strategy, no marketing. So if you think with a time frame of 1 year, you will be like, our marketing strategy will be ABC. But if you think with 1 day time frame, you will be like, what can I do today? Okay, I can try to find 1 customer. Because that's something you can happen during the day. You can find 1 customer. It seems small, it seems ridiculous, it seems like the little thing that will bring you nowhere. But actually, as an entrepreneur, if you do that, you will be much better than 99% of the entrepreneurs that write business plan. So, distractions are things that you need to avoid. And being focused is also about finding a way to organize your time schedule as very precise and as organized as possible. So be sure that everything you do come down to a very concrete organization of your work, and be sure that one of the ways to stay focused is to have a time frame that is out of any distraction. So try to find a way to discipline yourself around that. You know, there is 5 things in your life. There is 5 atomic elements that define the life of everyone. You have your work, you have your family, you have your friends, you have your entertainment, and you have everything else. It's a good element for everything I forget. Pick 2. That's the entrepreneurial way. That's it. You can do work and friends. You can do work and family. But work, friends, and family, impossible. Not enough time. And why? Because as an entrepreneur, you should not see your life as a quest of work-life balance equilibrium. I know that all of that is very fashionable nowadays, but as an entrepreneur, you are working on a game that needs so much energy that the only thing you can do is during this lapse of time, the beginning of your journey, you need to be so intense and so focused that you cannot do so much thing in your life. So being focusing as an entrepreneur comes down also about making hard choice about your life. And that hard choice are not forever. Like, I'm not telling you you should live all your life like as a very intense entrepreneur. Like, you know, I think most of very successful entrepreneurs end up finding a balance in their life. But if you are serious about making your company take off, if you are serious about the fact you want to build something big, you need to be serious about which kind of choice you do about your life. So, one of the most common source of unfocusing are investors. Investors are so good at unfocusing startup. So of course, when I talk about investor, I talk about bad investors. So I'm talking around 80% of the investors investing in Europe. That will have been said on camera. Hello, my friends. So, so investors, they have 3 tools to unfocus yourself. And they love to use that tools. The first one is stupid reporting. Let's be clear. As an entrepreneur, you took money from someone, you should be very good at reporting. Don't accept to have the respect of anyone if you don't keep in the loop of information about your company. And as an entrepreneur, one of your focus should be to report as often as possible what happened inside your company to the community of your investors. But that said, reporting is something built internally in the logic of your business and in the logic of your framework. So many investors ask reporting not for them, but for their own investors. And it's not your job to do their investor report. So many bad investors, they need to write a yearly memo about the portfolio. And so what do? They ask their portfolio to write the memo. So for information, they are paid a management fee of 2 or 3% a year. So they can hire an intern to do that, and it's not your job to do that. So be very clear about which kind of reporting you will do. Be very precise about the kind of reporting you do. Be very disciplined about the kind of reporting you do. But build reporting that provide value for your own company, because you should track your KPI. You should track your numbers. You are not here to write a bullshit memo that no one will read anyway. The second tools that every bad investor have to keep people unfocused in their portfolio is random intro. So it's good to get introduced to people by your investors. That's one of the most simple way that most investors can provide value to their company and portfolio, is to open their network, open their portfolio, and provide access to people and make connection. But the problem is that intros require talent. Intros require that at some moment people think about who will be connected to who. And so many times, people are just introducing people to other people for the wrong reason. One of the common wrong reasons is, yeah, that guy is so amazing, you should meet him. Yeah, of course, because that's what I do with my life, taking coffee with amazing people to remind how amazing I'm not. Of course not. Of course, you should never meet anyone without a clear agenda. You know how many emails I receive a day from people that want to take a coffee with me? Like, first, I don't drink coffee. So bad luck for everyone offering me coffee. And also, why I should take any meeting without an agenda? Like, if I don't have any interest to take that meeting, why should I take the meeting? For the pay it forward culture, I pay it forward with my friends, not with random people that send me emails and I don't know them. So be hardcore about yourself and be very clear with the people that introduce you to other people. And one of the good ways to do that, for example, I have a personal methodology. I have a spreadsheet where I rank every intro that I receive from people, and I can do a graduation about the matchmaking talent of people. So some people have very bad grades, so when I receive intro from them, I don't reply. And at some point, they will feel so embarrassed that I don't reply to their intro that they are stopping. And some people are so good at matchmaking us with so incredible people that provide us very short-term value that I give them a bonus. And each time I receive an intro from them, I go much faster and I reply much more diligently. And ranking people from the value they provide you is one of the ways to stay focused. And so few people are doing that, but if collectively we are all doing that, we will rank people in the ecosystem much faster, and we will see who provide value and who not. And it will be so cool if we publish that. That will be next step. A next source of focusing is your inbox. So I can talk about that because I think I'm a very good victim of public email and so many emails. You know, I reached a point where I decided to declare Chapter 11 on my mailbox. I don't know if you know what Chapter 11, in US, declaring Chapter 11 means that you declare bankrupt. And so what I do is that now every month I delete every email that I did not read, and I just forget about them. So why I'm doing that? Because I realized something about the mailbox. I realized that we are victim as a transition generation of the old world applied to the new world. So what is a mailbox? A mailbox is a place where anyone can write to you with no barrier to the entry. And it's so easy to write email to everyone. So the problem with that is that we took the etiquette of a very old world when writing to someone cost a lot. You know, you need to buy paper, use your hand, and put that in things, go to the postal service. Like, only that was really making it really high level and inaccessible. And sending the letter and waiting for 2 weeks for someone replying and sending back a message, all of that. And we took that etiquette and we applied it to email. But what is email? If you think about what is email as an entrepreneur, it's a to-do list that the outside world makes enforceable to you. But it's just an unsolicited to-do list. Because the to-do you receive in your mailbox are the to-do of the people, but not necessarily your to-do. And realizing that, you will realize that most of the email you receive, you are fine about never replying to them, because they are outside your focus. And you know, there is this thing that is so strange with so many good entrepreneurs, is that when a client writes an email to the company, the email goes in the support mailbox that is taken care by interns or very low-level people in your company, customer service. And they are, I think, the most single important part of communication around your company. And when someone writes you an email directly about an internship that anyway doesn't care because he sent 1,000 emails with the same letter and he even made a mistake in the name of your company, you reply. And you are like, why? Why people are so irrational? So one of the advice we give every startup is that the support email of their company should be the CEO mailbox. And the CEO should reply to every client email until the moment he cannot. And when he cannot, he should be the second most important person in the company that do that until he go down to a specialized customer support and happiness team. Because caring to your customer, that's a huge priority. But managing random message in your mailbox about a guy that want to invite you at something unsolicited, that's not important. So be smart about your email and don't take it on the wrong side. So one of the best ways to keep on track is to have a very clear KPI dashboard that you build and you track week over week to see if your focus pay off or not. And to come back to the ride biking lesson earlier, KPI are great because they are telling you if you are failing or not. They are telling you if you're on track or not, and it will provide you a kind of, a back-end processing thing that you will at some point realize very unconsciously what works and what doesn't work. And KPI are so good for that because they are your best friend. Sometimes a friend that is a bit harsh because he always tells the truth, but your best friend because if it goes up, everything goes up in your life. So focusing on your KPI is very, very important, and you need to be sure that you keep track of the important KPI. So let's talk a little bit about the KPI. You have three kinds of KPI. You have the vanity KPI, you have the operationals KPI, and you have your life KPI. So the most important metric you need to be aware of is your life KPI. So what is the life KPI? The life KPI is the KPI that needs to always go up, and that is always the last step of the process of your company. So in 99% of the case, the life KPI is revenue. It's never too early to think about revenue. It's never too early to have revenue that are growing. And please, sentence like, we are not focusing on our revenue, but focusing on our growth are illegal. Because it doesn't mean anything. If you are focusing on your growth, you are focusing on your revenue. What hell a company can grow anything more important than the revenue? And of course, it's much easier to have the number of sign-up that are growing. But the number of sign-up doesn't mean anything. What means something is that your revenue are growing. Okay, there is 1% of the case where that is not true, as there is 1% of the case where revenue are not so important for the company. But that 1% of the case, first, they never concern any first-time entrepreneur. And let's be clear about that. It's a luxury of a second-time entrepreneur to don't focus about revenue. It's because you have a track record, you already lost a lot of money to a lot of people, so they have no other choice than invest again. And so you don't track the revenue. But 99.9% of first-time entrepreneurs need to track that life metric and be sure that is always, always going up. If it's not going up week over week, it's not good. And by the way, when we are saying it's going up, it's not in cumulative result. Because so many times we see, for example, someone that makes $100 on week 1, $100 on week 2, $100 on week 3, $100 on week 4, and he say, I'm growing 400% a month. So no, that's not growing. That is just having exactly the same revenue week over week. So what you should check is that the first week you do $100, the second week you do 120, the third week you do 140, the fourth week you do 160. That is growing. You need to think in absolute numbers, and you need to be sure that you're alive. That doesn't mean that if you are not alive, you should stop your company, because it can take a long time to figure out how your life metric works and how your life metrics can grow. But you need to be very, very smart about that. If you have not a life metric that is growing, you are just a fucking walking dead. And as a walking dead, your future is not bright. You know, no walking dead end up better than being shot by someone at some point. So it's exactly the same thing. And you can think that as a question of responsibility as an entrepreneur. If your life metric is going up and is alive, you are responsible of your company, you are in control. If your life metric is going down or is not going up, what happened? You are in the hand of your investors. And you have no other choice than listening to whatever they have to say. Because they will provide for the medical care. And you don't want that as an entrepreneur. The second kind of metrics and KPIs are the operational metrics. So I will not dig into that. There is 1,000 different of article. You can type in Google what are the best KPI to follow, and you will find a lot of dashboard depending on your industries, depending on where you are, and blah, blah, blah. But let's be clear about that. Don't focus on too many metrics in the same time. The worst entrepreneurs are the ones that have the biggest dashboards. Because bigger your dashboard is, easier it will be to find something that goes up. Because if you have so many metrics you are following, you will always end up having this rationale about why everything is all right. Okay, so that metric is not going well, but that one is going well, and at some point it will have an effect on the other one. So be harsh with yourself and try to keep the number of metrics you are tracking as low as possible. Because everything you will measure will provide you growth and will go up. So if you are not tracking the right thing, you will go up on the wrong thing. And that will not help your company. So be smart about that. And the last thing are the vanity metrics. So the vanity metrics, I also call them the surprise metric, is the metrics you need to look at every time you do a PR, because they don't mean anything, but they impress. For example, if you are a social network, let's talk about your number of users. For example, if you are Menu Next Door, you can look at the number of people on your Facebook group. That's a funny story. Look, we have a company, Menu Next Door, they have so many people on their Facebook group. Each time a journalist comes, is impressed by the number of people. And so it's go up, of course. But I can tell you internally no one cares. Because internally the only thing that cares is how many people are eating every day. Because that's the life metric of Menu Next Door. Not how many people click on a group or get invited by force by a spammer in the team of Menu Next Door. But of course journalists doesn't have this kind of notion because they are journalists in first place. So they don't really know how all of that works. And because they don't know how it works, they believe the stories that entrepreneur says. For example, to apply at the family, it's very easy. You send an email. So we have this great vanity metrics that every journalist asks is how many apply do you have? Like if you look the mailbox of apply, I think 70% of the people doesn't need the family but a medical doctor. And you don't imagine how many apply are just crap. and people are like, oh, that's impressive, so many imply. But it doesn't mean anything. Like if you want to look the real metric of the family is the quality of startup that we get in. And vanity metrics are the kind of metrics that the outside world will ask. That doesn't mean that you don't need to make them scary. That doesn't mean that they should not go up. That doesn't mean that they are not important in kind of competition. But for God's sake, don't look at the competitor vanity metric and believe them. Because also, most of the time, people lie because everybody lies. So, one of the things that you need to learn to do is that you need to learn to build around you some protection to keep you focused. So, it's never easy to say no. It depends on people, of course, but mostly nice people don't like to say no. It's never easy to really be focused. So one of the good ways to do that is to write down simple rules and simple framework or simple question that will act as a test for everything happening in your company. And you can remind yourself by just looking at it and telling yourself, does I apply that rule or not? And that's one of the single way of being focused and staying focused. And why being focused is so important, and I will end up on that, is that you need to understand that most of the startups works exactly like a boat. And what happened on a boat is if you have the joy of sailing one day, you will learn that for very strange reason that really I don't explain, everybody is acting like he's a captain. Oh, captain, my captain. Like people are, if that guy is the captain of the boat, it's for a reason. So even if he's doing things that are weird or counterintuitive, they will tend to replicate them. And so it's exactly the same thing in your startup. Is as a founder, very early on, you are not focused, every single person joining your team will be less focused than you are, and you will end up with a mess very fast. And be aware of that. Every person you hire is your enemy for the first 6 months. And I'm not kidding. Because what happens when you hire people? When you hire people, people come with their own intuition, their own methodology, their own view of the world, and they always have this kind of reaction, why we don't do that way instead of that way. And that's great. Sometimes. Most of the times, people are just uninformed. Most of the time, people are just not understanding the rationale behind your decision. Sometimes they are just unfocused. And so being very, very intense and being very, very focused help people learn and adapt to the culture of the company faster. And one of the single points of success for startups is the speed with which you onboard people. More people become productive fast by the culture, by what is surrounding them, better your company will be. But the problem is that by definition, even very talented people will always make mistakes, will always be unfocused, and will always represent a threat for your startup, for your company, and for your culture. And the only way to protect yourself from that is to be crystal clear about what is the focus, what is allowed, what is not. And one of the issues is that more you are hiring people, more you will need to do it faster on your people. And one of the only way to do that is that everyone share a very, very intense culture. If people don't share that kind of intense culture, people will not be in a situation where they will be ready to follow you, they will not be ready to apply your culture, and they will do everything they can to change it. But if your culture is very strong, and if your focus is very strong, they will have only 2 choices. They will adapt, or they will leave. And that will be much better than having someone that goes north when everybody else is going south. Thank you very much. So, questions?
When you say learn how to say no,
Yeah.
how do you feel about saying no to your customers? For example, if they ask for something that you're not normally doing, do you advise to say no or to try to do it anyway?
Very good point, and I totally forget to talk about that. But it's true that when we say you should talk to your customer, that doesn't mean that you should listen to everything your customer says. You are still the entrepreneur, and you need to take decision, and you need to be bold. So your product will be defined by everything you are not doing. So customers, like there is this CEO of, I don't remember which automobile company that say, I asked Porsche clients what they want. They want more space for the leg. They want less noise with the engine. Actually, they just want the fucking Volvo. And that's the problem. The problem is that people don't realize that everything they want to improve will take the soul out of the product they are asking for. And some companies are better at that than others. Like if you look at every extraordinary company around the world, they are so good at fighting back with their user. I think one of the examples of that is Facebook. Like Facebook shock their user over 6 months, and they resist and go back, go up, go front. And it's very important to be crystal clear about what your customer needs and to go in that direction. But at the end, customers always have the last word, because sometimes you need to hurt them a little bit for a bigger success. It's called the Tiger Woods effect. Like it's a very famous story. I don't know if you watch or follow golf, but at least everybody knows Tiger Woods for his 10 wives in 10 cities. So he's kind of famous outside golf for that. Until that day, Tiger Woods was World Series champion year over year for almost 6 years or 7 years. One of the best golf player ever. And his story is very interesting because before being number one, he was number 5 or 4. And if you look at the average revenue of a golf player, being number 5 or 4, it's something like between $5 to $10 million a year. So it's not bad in terms of personal career. It's not bad in terms of personal revenue. And he went coach over coach to find someone that was ready to make him number one. And he found that coach that told him, like, I know what's your problem. You have a problem with your swing, and there is no way to solve that issue. And the only way to solve that issue is that you need to unlearn golf and reach a point where you will be so bad that we can learn from scratch and you will come up back. And that guy did that crazy thing that he was 4 or 5 in the golf rank and he went down to 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. He get down to a point where everyone had forget his name. And he came back. And he came back as number one. And that effect of getting down to be better can be done only with a huge amount of courage. And you need to don't underestimate the amount of courage you will need as an entrepreneur. So that's where you will earn your equity. You know, a lot of entrepreneurs want to have an absolute answers about everything, and they think that very simple answers like, oh, you should do A, B, C, and you will succeed. So why you will get 30% of your company? If it was easy like that, we will just apply rules, take employees, and make them realize the rules, and we will be very, very rich. We are not that rich. And why? Because entrepreneurs need to earn their equity. Entrepreneur needs to take hard decisions. And sometimes it hurts. Like, one of the things is that you need to reach a level where you will start to have instinct about your business, where you will start to have instinct about what you are doing. And the only way to do that is to be wrong for a very long-term period of time. So if someone one day go to do box, I don't know if people do box here, but when you fight, I never did box, but when I was kid, I was fighting a lot. One of the things you learn fighting in the street or on the street is that people think that the goal of fighting is to avoid to be eaten and to be beaten. But one thing you learn when it happens to you is that it doesn't hurt so much. So you become more courageous and more violent because at some point you understand that you are not in sugar and your level of tolerance is much higher than you think. Being an entrepreneur is the same thing. When you are first-time entrepreneurs, everything is scary. You are scared of doing mistakes, you are scared of losing money, you are scared of things. And one day it happens to you because you will end up losing money, you will end up making mistakes, and I will hope it will happen faster than later. And when that happens, you have two choices. You realize that it was not such a big deal, or you realize that actually it's not for you and you should do something else. But I think that's a single test. And your client thing is the same thing. Sometimes you will not listen to the client and it will cost you so much that you will learn to hear them when it's important. And sometimes you will listen to them and it will cost you so much that you will learn to don't listen to them. So there is not such a thing as a simple rule where you can say, listen to your customer or don't listen to your customer. You need to earn your equity and you need to be good at that.
Hello. I have a question about the captain role in startups. Because usually when you start a startup, you are two, three co-founders. To find the right person, the right president, you might have a problem because you don't know, you think that you are doing kind of the same thing that your partner is doing, but at the end of the day, you need one person to decide and tell you exactly which direction you should go. So how can we came to this point?
So the co-founding team and the building of the co-founding team is the first natural test for entrepreneurs. And like let's say it that way, that will be the first moment where you will define if you are good as an entrepreneur or not. Because having co-founders is exactly like your personal life. There is people that are very, very good with their personal life. You know, we all have these kind of friends that are happy, they find their love, everything seems natural, and everything is going well. And there is these people that are on Tinder all day long, and nothing works out. And they have the feeling that it will never work out. I think the first test as an entrepreneur is that test. Like, you know, a lot of people tell themselves, oh, I will be an entrepreneur when I will find an idea. No, you will be an entrepreneur when you will find a co-founder. For example, I didn't create the family because I had the idea of the family. Like there is, like, if you know the OUSSAMA 4 years ago and you tell him you will open a fucking incubator, I will have bluff. Like, there is no way all of that will happen. But it happened because I found Alice. And when I found Alice, for me, was sure I wanted to do something with her. And because it was a family, let's be the family. And it's much more important who you are working with than what you are doing. And for your question of authority and things like that, it should be natural on day one, because the authority things come down to the admiration things. You know, one of the mistakes most entrepreneurs do is that they work with people they like. You should not work with someone you like. You should work with someone you're crazy in love of. Because you need to admire them to a point where whatever they say, it's word of God. You know, founder voice should be God voice in your mind. And if you are not reaching that point, it's fine, you're just not with the right co-founder. And that's the problem, is that most of the co-founding relation as artificial as most of the couple out there. Is that people are not hard enough with themselves about which kind of people they want to do something with. So what you are asking as a question, I see it as a design. It doesn't mean, of course, that there is no tension. It doesn't mean that, of course, you don't need to work out things. It doesn't mean that there is not, you know, things that will need to be fixed. But at least on day one, you need to have this energy of going. And if you don't have this energy of going, the project is already dead. And we need, by the way, to look at that data, Balthazar. But one of the things I start to have the feeling with is that each time we took a company because it was a good idea or it was a company we wanted it to build, and we was not so sure about, you know, the mix of co-founders and the energy, blah, blah, he ended up bad. He ended up so bad. And it's weird because nothing on paper should make that kind of company end up that way. It's weird that so much of rational good things end up bad just because people relationship are not so great. And even us, we don't really understand why. So if I can give you a single piece of advice, it's better to be alone than with someone that doesn't deserve it. And, you know, it's one of the tests also. Like, you know, some people are alone, not because they don't find anyone, but just because they cannot trust anyone. And if you have in this kind of psychology, you are not being to be an entrepreneur. You know, like one of the things you need to learn as an entrepreneur is you need to be trustworthy. And you need to be very comfortable about the fact that every year a certain amount of people will screw you up. And you know, I did that calculus. It's one of the problems in my life. I did a spreadsheet. Like every time I have a problem, I love spreadsheet. Life is in spreadsheet. It's very understated. I did a spreadsheet with everyone I met and everyone that screwed me in my life, and I realized it was less than 1% of the people. And the real cost of being screwed is so low that you should not protect yourself from. You know, a lot of things here are designed around that. You know, a lot of people we hire find that we are totally crazy because of that. For example, one of the story I will now tell for 10 years is that our Dropbox is open. Like, if you join the family, even as an intern, you will get access to every secret document of the family, the salary of every member of the team, the bank account statement, the bills, the things. And there's two things funny around that. The first thing funny is that no one opened it. Like, the only two people that open the Dropbox is Balthazar and I. Like, we love to read every single document, and everybody else doesn't care. And recently we hired a fantastic admin in our team, and she arrived, she saw that, and she closed the Dropbox and put authorization on every folder, depending on the level of seniority in the team. And I was like, are you really considering that I don't know how to configure Dropbox? Like, are you really thinking that you arrived in a place where no one was able to do what you just did? And why you did not think that that was not something that was like that through random, but something by design? And why we are doing that? Because the value of doing that is much higher than every downside we can have. Maybe one day we will have a crazy intern that will leak a document to a journalist, or maybe one day we will have a crazy employee that is so mad at us that he will take an information and send it to a competitor. But it's so uncommon that why you want to protect yourself from that. And you know, it's like, if you want to think about the design of our society, it's so common because 1% of things happen that 99% of the people get really crushed. Like, I will not talk about terrorist law, things like that, because it's not the subject. But you can think exactly the same way. It's like, because something so extreme happen, you change all society around that kind of things. And don't do that, like, people do that because it's a good way of being a politician, but don't do that as an entrepreneur. Stay focused on the data and stay focused on what really happened. And if everybody screw you up, like, maybe there's a problem with you in first place. So let's see it like that.
Hello. Just a question about product market fit. It's when you have a lot of traction or when you start to have some revenues?
So the definition of product market fit is that you reach product market fit when you start to be late around your company. You know, when you start your company, you are always in advance because you decide to do something and it happens. Product market fit is when things happen in your company and you are always late behind. Too many customers to manage, too many emails to answer, too many complaints from users. You know, one of the best clue about product market fit is that the level of people yelling at you got so high. Like, every time we see that in a company, we are so happy. Like, sometimes founders are like, okay, these people are weird. But when people start to really yell at you in public, on Twitter and blah, it means that what you are doing matters. And if there is a ton of them, it's just that you are underserving them and you have only one plan, is to fix that. It's so easy to fix something. You know, what most entrepreneurs have as a problem is that they don't know what to fix. There is no one to yell at them, there is no one to be unhappy, and there is no one to care. So every company has a different kind of product market fit. Every company, every sectors have a different level of product market fit. So I cannot give you an answer like product market fit is reaching that. But what I can tell you is that product market fit is obvious. And if you ask a question, did I reach product market fit? It's because you did not reach it. Whatever the level of metrics you have.
Quand est-ce que tu sais quand est-ce qu'il faut se focus sur une live KPI? Quand il faut vraiment se focus dessus.
Okay, so when do you know when it's the right time to focus on the life metric? So you should always focus on your life metric. Because your life metric means if you are live or not. You know, Paul Graham wrote an article, Dead Alive, no, I don't remember the title, but the idea is very simple. Are you in a situation where if fundraising market return, you can stay alive, or are you in a situation where you are depending on your investors? So that's why you need to track your life metric. And on day first, you need to look at it. That doesn't mean that on day first, you will have the right life metrics. That doesn't mean that it will grow on day first. That doesn't mean that it will go well. But at least, you know, you can put a big red light and a green light in your office. And if the light is red, is that you are dead. And if the light is green, is that, okay, things start to go well. And you know, you can sometimes, life metrics can be fine until a certain point, and you will go back to the Walking Dead zone, and you will be alive again, and Walking Dead again, and life again. So it's not like an on-off thing, but it's something you need to keep a track on, because your goal as an entrepreneur is that you need to go out from the dead zone as soon as possible. Please come.
Default alive or default dead?
It's one of the best essays wrote about startup, because it's one of the few essays that can apply so universally. Because everywhere, wherever you are, in any country, your goal is to be default alive as soon as possible.
In the case of social businesses, KPIs can be something different than just revenues, right?
Everyone in the social business community in France hate me. Now we will be global. So let's be honest. So it's a very personal answer. I don't pretend that I have the truth on that subject. But my feeling is that every social business I know end up bankrupt for this very specific reason. It's because it's so hard to focus on multiple things, and there is also a problem behind the social business things, is that I think every good business are social. Like it's not like there is this special appellation of a business that can pretend that is social. So here my view of the world. My view of the world is that the job of the government is to make laws to be enforceable, to be sure that no one can hurt anyone. You know, I don't think that is the responsibility of any corporation to have the monopoly of ethics. I don't think it's the responsibility of any corporation to decide what is right and what is wrong. I think the goal of every corporation around the world is to make the maximum amount of money, respecting the rules that the government decide. And we pay tax so the government can take care about all the problems that will occur from the market. But if the government try to play the market and the market try to play the government, we will be creating a kind of a vicious relationship where no one really knows where the power is. And I think that's one of the issues as a generation will have. You know, in France, we have this law that separates church and the government. It's a law we are very proud of, and a lot of very Western countries have that law, and it's a basis of modern democracy. I think our generation will see at some point a debate about the fact that economics and government should be separate, that corporation and government should be separate. And to answer your question, my view of social business is that they don't exist. They don't exist because every business that tries to focus on something else than money makes so many people inside their corporation confused. Because no one knows what to track, no one knows what is real success. Every kind of success make debates, and etc. And of course, I'm not like, I received an email recently because I did a video in French about that, and someone sent me an email saying, so, you are for the child abuse. Yeah, of course. It's so good with child, they work so hard, and they have no free will. I'm happy that we use them. It's stupid. Like it's like you can try to take the morality on your side, but it's wrong. The morality is in the law, it's not inside any corporation that can decide to do much better.
Exactly when do you know when to cut a project or a company loose?
Most people asking this question are asking this question the wrong way, because they are hoping that there is an answer about how to reduce their risk. And they hope that there is this magic formula that they can put in a spreadsheet and put the data and it will say, your company is dumb. But the problem is that as the startups, we all live in the George Clooney effect. So what is the George Clooney effect? In the 80s and 90s, when you go to Hollywood to become an actor, you will do that in your early 20s. And if at 30 years old you did not become a huge star, you will leave Hollywood, go back to Kansas or Kentucky or wherever you are come from, and you will just live your life, a normal life. And one day, George Clooney appeared. So who is George Clooney? He's a guy that in his late 40s become hugely successful. And until that moment, he was just a loser. So every single actors that reach 30 years old and start to ask questions about his life, should I leave, should I stop, is saying himself, I am the next George Clooney or not? And that creates like this kind of tension where you never know where you will stop. And because you are asking the wrong question, the good question you should ask is, do I enjoy what I am doing? And that should be the simple answer that makes you continue. And of course, you should not do exactly the same thing every day, because if you do exactly the same thing every day, it will be obstination, it will be stupidity. But being an entrepreneur is a one-way ticket. Like, if you become an entrepreneur and you enjoy being an entrepreneur, even if you are not successful, you should keep being an entrepreneur. And you know, like, it comes down to the idea that in life, you know, we talk so much about the joy of doing things. But we should talk about the level of suffering we are ready to take, because they define us much more than the level of joy we have in activity. You know, a lot of people say, I will do something because I like it. Yeah, but do you want to do something because whatever pain it will provide, you will be fine with that? And it's exactly the same thing about when do you stop your company. Some people, like George Clooney, are so comfortable of not having success that they can go forever and ever. And they will prefer that than doing anything else. And if there is a single thing that you can do as an alternative to be an entrepreneur, you should do it. Like so many times, please take the microphone again.
So you believe that everyone should be 100% in love with every project they take on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I think everyone should be 1,000%. And if you are not 1,000%, you are not in the right project.
Okay.
It might be stupid, but
That's
it's
fine.
just about the day-to-day operation.
Yeah.
I would say, for example, if you have one target for tomorrow, how can you do in your today life at work to stay focused and don't lose this focus? Because we often have a lot of interruption from like your mailbox, Facebook, phones, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, do you have any tips to provide in order to stay focused?
I think I'm one of the worst person in the world at that. You know, I can unfocus myself so much that I can forget what I was doing before because a notification appears. So, like, I'm on your track, and it's really not a stupid question. So, we have this problem that is kind of new, is that it's really hard on the practical side to stay focused because there is so much notification, there is so much ring, and there is this culture of instantaneity. You know, like sometimes when you don't reply to someone for 1 hour, it's sure you are dead. Like it's not like, oh, maybe he's doing something. No, he's dead in the river with a bullet in his head. You know, it's like there is no middle anymore. And, you know, it's always like that for the generation of transition. For example, I love to look at how teenagers act with notification. Like, the first thing teenagers do in average when they have a phone, it's to kill every notification. And it's so funny, because they are born in it, so they don't have this feeling that they have any external obligation. And they are like, yeah, I will look when I look, and that's fine. And it's so funny because they are connected all day long. You know, it comes with this weird concept of, it's not because there is notification that I will look, because no one will tell me what to do. But of course, they will be connected all day long. But so it comes down to stupid things. You should shut your mailbox. You should define hours where you reply email. You should look at your Facebook only 10 times a day, no more. You should discipline yourself. And I'm not a personal coach. I have no idea of how helping people doing that. And I'm sure there is thousands of ways to do that, and there is thousands of articles. But don't do the other opposite, because focusing is not also. It's not just an attitude. We have these entrepreneurs that are so focused that they are stupid. Like there is an urgent email and they don't see it because they are focused. But being focused is not an attitude. Being focused is a mindset. There is a difference between mindset and attitude. Attitude is what you fake to look like something, like people that want to look cool. And there is a mindset of being cool. It's just natural. So it's again the same thing. So I will like around obvious thing like cut crap out and try to don't distract yourself. And the meetings is a good example of that. Like a lot of companies take meetings and they don't need to take meetings. They need to build a product. So that can be a good culture. Like during 6 months you lock down and don't take meeting. I think the most impressive company I ever saw around that, Facebook. Like if there is one company that I really personally admire, Facebook. Like these people are so crazy that they can lock down and lock up a 1,000 company for a week. Like 1,000 people during 1 week do nothing else than a single task because there is an emergency. Like for example, when Google Plus get out, they locked down the company. So they told everyone in the company, maybe 3,000 people, to cancel all meeting during 2 weeks and only work on a set of tasks that was like these gigantic to-dos to prepare to the war. I try to don't take any meeting until April to focus on the videos, look at my agenda. Like every day I cancel things and every day things come back and I'm a bit weak and blah, blah, because it's so hard. So I understand the pain. I'm not giving a lesson about focus because no one is never 100% focused. It's more something we need to all reach. It's not something you are or you are not. You can be a little bit more every day.
When you speak about to stay focused,
Yeah.
I understand to lose or to gain energy. And for me, a way to lose energy is to take too much time to explain the goal.
Sorry. You know why I laugh? Because I understand your pain. I try to have a view of the world where the people that receive are never responsible of anything, even if it's not true, because that helped me to be better every day. So the way you ask the question and the way you say, oh, I don't want to lose energy explaining things because people are slow at explaining. In my personal view, I will say that you are bad at explaining things. And I think we should all act like that, even if it's not true. Like, I mean, there is so many time where people we are talking to are just out of the league or they don't understand or blah, blah, blah. But nothing should alterate your energy on that side, and you should try to build your optimism, because that's also the kind of impossible energy that defines entrepreneurs. And if I just one thing, it comes down also about how much, because we talked about the value of focus and the value of learning to say no, but it's also about the value to learn when people say no, and actually it's never a no and it should be a yes, and to keep pushing. There is these stats that are done about sales. You know how many try someone need to do for sales? In average, it's 7 try. You need a 6 or 5 no's before getting a sale. So when people say no one time, you should not stop. And it's a little bit universal. Yeah, please.
What I have in mind is holocracy, because
Holocracy, yeah.
Because what is for me the best way to avoid to lose energy is to get involved in the company as if everybody would be a startup manager itself.
Okay, so again, personal view. I do whatever you want in your life, but I will give you an empirical view about that. Every single company that tries to apply innovative management strategy are dying. Like, there is not such a thing as a company that innovate at management and innovate as company. Every good company out there, on the beginning, until being mature enough, are dictatorship. And a dictatorship where every details count and where at every level as a founder you should be involved, etc. At one point, you reach a point, maybe you will be a big company or a small, medium company, you will reach a point where the fight is done and you need to manage your company. And maybe holacracy at that moment can work, or every other kind of innovative management strategy. But the time where you are able to innovate about management are a time where you are already hugely successful. And until that moment, there is only one way to manage your company as a startup, is about being very detail-oriented and obsessed at every single level. Because if, as a founder, you are not, you will end up having all these people taking the control of your company and not being able to reach the point where you want to reach. And you know, it hurt. Like, one of the things that is so difficult about being a successful entrepreneur is that people think that you are successful before you really are. And I think that's one of the things that makes it so horrible to be successful, is that people will project in you success on your storytelling, not on your reality. And that's good because it's your job as an entrepreneur. But you will have to understand as an entrepreneur that you need 24 months or 36 months more to be sure that you will survive and be alive and blah, blah. You know, for example, Save in our portfolio is a good example of that. We are hiring 2,000 people this year. When you're hiring 2,000 people during a year, everybody thinks it's done. Everybody thinks, okay, the job is done. But the reality is that the job is starting. Because it's when you hire 2,000 people in 1 year that everything can go wrong. And it's much harder than having the first 10 people of your team. Yeah.
About co-funding, can you explain again why it's often seen as a must-have to have co-founders when you don't need space?
So why is it a must-have to have a co-founder? So there is 3 reasons for that. First, there is a structural one. For startups are way too much work for anyone alone. And they are way too much depressing for anyone alone. So it's something very simple and basic, is that you need courage, and you cannot maintain 100% level of courage every day. And so when you are down, you need someone up. And when everybody is down, you need to be in a group to go up together. And it's you know, like being in team play, you can do things in team that you will otherwise never do alone. So that's the practical reason. Now there is the investor bias. The investor bias is that, and it's a very important and good one, is that if you are not able to convince someone to join you, you will never be able to have anything in your company. It's a very hardcore test. It's not true all time long. There is some situation where the reason why you are a founder alone are very specific. For example, we have very good single founder in the family, but they are quite unique. And it's because they have some personal issue. And that personal issue don't hurt the business, but still, it's personal issue. And the fact that you tell the world that you will convince everyone to buy a product, but you did not find any friend to believe it, it's really weird.
There's a bias in that you want, I mean, you consider by saying that people want to have, to convince a friend or someone to join them.
if you don't want
I
to...
don't say I'm not in the case, I'm
No,
just
no,
trying to
please,
understand.
no worry. We are talking about your friend. So, look, if you have this kind of feeling, if you say things like, there is a bias because I don't want to convince someone to join me, you are telling that you don't think that the fight will be hard. You are telling that you don't think that the fight will be intense, and you are telling the world that the fight will be unimportant. And the third reason is a statistical one. There is 1,000 of studies that are done on the subject, and the odds of succeeding with your startups by being a solo founders are 200 times lower than having a bad co-founder. Think about that.
What do you mean when you say we have to be in survival mode?
What do I mean to be in survival mode? Do you want a mimic or a movie? Or no, it's a very easy idea, is that at the beginning in your startup, if you don't push and if you are like not very hardcore about what you are doing, your startup will not exist. So you are dead. It's a definition of survival mode. Like people that, like if you crash in a plane and you have no food for a week, no one is supposed to stay a week without food. You agree on that? That's a survival mode. Is that even if there is no food during a week, even if it's unnatural to stay so long without food, you will do everything you can to survive. That's a survival mode. Companies are the same. A company is something that should have a team, revenue, product. When you start as a founder, you have nothing of that. So you should be dead. It's exactly like a survival mode. So you should do everything you need to survive. Yeah.
In order to stay focused on revenue, should you do predictions, and how
No.
should you? No.
Very simple answer. Like, avoid prediction, avoid planning, avoid everything that a consultant can do. It's a very good test mentally. Like, imagine what a consultant will do, and if you do it, don't do it. It works all time long. Like the most opposite career to entrepreneurship is consulting. So, for example, I think consultants do the worst entrepreneurs. And it's statistically proven. Like, I'm sorry for that. And there is a very good reason for that, is that in the first place, a lot of people become consultant for the wrong reason. They become consultant because there is nothing they want to focus on. Like, I know that I was a consultant. So, like, the fact you become consultant is because you want to change your mind, and you want to change your project, and you want to change what you take care of every week. So that, as an entrepreneur, you need to unlearn it. And it's really hard to unlearn it. The second thing is, as a consultant, you have the illusion that you understand how a company works. Because you are trained to make others believe that you understand how a company works. Because that's your job as a strategy consultant. But the problem is that if you have been an entrepreneur once in your life, you know that there is a huge gap between whatever a consultant can say and the reality on the field. It's exactly the same thing than in the military, being on the ground and fight for death, and being in a room and say the strategy is to go on that place and take that city. So this is why every good officers have been soldiers before, and every bad officers start officers. Again, same thing. And the third thing is that most of the time, when you have been a consultant, you made a living in your life, and because it was an easy way to make a living, it's really hard to go back to the hard way of making a living. It's very human. It's nothing wrong. And I'm not like, you know, we have here in our team a lot of ex-consultants, and they do a pretty job, but not being an entrepreneur. And I can tell you that none of the consultants we hired will ever be an entrepreneur. Because that's one of the things. Hello, Henri. Like one of the things you need to be really, really focused on the fact that most of the time, what you have as a background or experience or things are not an asset, but liabilities. Like the only asset as an entrepreneur is to be unconscious and blank. Like that's an asset as an entrepreneur. Everything else, like again, works also for engineers. Why engineers do so bad entrepreneurs most of the time? Because they are engineers. So what they learn to do? They learn to do specification, product, things like that. They are not hackers. Like why hackers do so great entrepreneur? Because they have nothing as an asset. The only asset they have is that they are able to learn whatever they need to learn to make something happen. That's an entrepreneurship attitude. And sorry for all the consultants.
Do you think we should choose a co-founder based on the skills that we have and we have not, so that we can?
No. No. Like, do you think you should choose your husband on the skills he has?
Probably better, but.
Yeah. Okay, I was not talking about that kind of skills, but I get trapped in my own joke. So, like, you should be crystal clear about the fact that the co-founders is not the most competitive, the most skilled person in your team, is the only person you can trust blindly. That's the criteria of a co-founder. Like, it's so uncommon to find someone that as a co-founder will be the right person in his role forever. But that's not a co-founder. A co-founder is a guy that you can put wherever there is something to fix and wherever there is something that needs to be done. And that's come down to trust. So, you know, you want a good test for co-founding. You have a co-founder, you want to know if you trust him, give him your bank account, credit card, and access to all your assets. Simple. If you sleep well, knowing that he has your credit card number, your bank account, and he can take whatever money you want and you will not notice it, it's your co-founder. And that doesn't come with skills, you know. It comes with something else. It comes with trust. It comes with something magical that bound people together.
I find that interesting in what you just said before, but it goes against everything you said earlier, which is that we should base who we want to meet with on this sort of a ranking system, what they can bring to us.
Yeah.
That, you know, in our ecosystem we should,
Yeah.
you know. And you're taking a huge part out of life, which is chance encounter. And I do believe there's a certain, you know, your own, I don't know, positive energy attitude kind of brings these people into your life. But, you know, this goes against what you just said.
So, two things. First, it doesn't go against what I say. It's two different categories of people. Pay attention. Like, I don't think you should treat the way you select employees the way you select your co-founders. Like, that's the point. And you should not select the people that are your partners or trusted relationship the way you select your employees and the way you select your co-founders. There is different category of people around you, and each of these category have a certain things you are looking for. And when it comes down to co-founders, it's not a question of skills. It's not a question of having someone that is perfect and doing things right. It's going down to someone you can really trust to a point that is irrational. And I don't think you should give your credit card to any employee. That's the point.
Surely you don't know what role people will play in your life before you've actually met them.
Yeah, that's true. So,
which in a way means you can't rank people or qualify them.
Can you speak louder? Sorry.
Which means in a way that you can't rank people or start before meeting them.
Okay, so that's the other part of the question. It's about the question of how can you reach the level of having this kind of feedback of people if in first place you don't have this random effect of opening opportunity. So let's be clear. First, it's not because you are focused that you don't have an entertainment time. Again, like it's an idea that is very important. I don't think anyone needs any advice about his entertaining time. And I don't think it's because you tell someone that you should be so focused that even taking external meeting should be considered off, that you will not meet people externally. People are not like that. What happened is that, why I say that, is I say that because each time it happens, each time you live your life, each time you're on the chance side, you need to be aware of the cost of being in it. And you need to be aware that if your strategy is to be so open that you will meet so random people that it will end up good, you will end up bad. Because what happens is that at some point, the random meetings, the random chance, the random thing will always be here. The question is, what importance do you give them and how much focus and energy do you put in that? And you should put as low energy and as low focus as possible on this part of business, because it will ever happen. It will always happen. You don't need to be like, for example, we have entrepreneurs that have this networking time in their calendar and they go to every single networking event. And these people, they never have the luck to never meet anyone good because they network way too much. So they even take out the joy of networking. Networking should be the thing that happens when you have a bit of free time and you enjoy a dinner and things like that. For example, that's why as a family we organize a monthly dinner. Once a month we tell you, you should spend 4 hours meeting random people. It's once a month, it's 4 hours, it's straight, it's focus. And it's not something you should do all day long. Because if you do it all day long, you will end up being very undisciplined. He replied to you? Cool. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Que la famille.